All right, welcome back. In case you're just joining us, I'm afraid, we've had so much to dish out to you today, but just still watch the program for this interview. Kennedy Iwundu is still with me here as the chairman, FCT Tax Practitioners Association. We're looking at the order that FIRS give to banks to freeze accounts of alleged tax defaulters. So if you're a tax defaulter, you don't pay regular taxes, or you are in the bad books of FIRS, you need to listen to this. Now, I was talking about, that's before the break, the power of substitution now that the FIRS has given to the banks, isn't it? Isn't it also a violation of banks' privacy?
Yeah, the banks have a principle of confidentiality, not to disclose information from their customers' account. But I want to say that the principle of confidentiality is not absolute, but qualified. The principle of confidentiality is not absolute, but is qualified. What I mean by that is that it is not in all circumstance that the principle of confidentiality should be upheld.
So in this issue now, this issue of the FIRS writing the banks, if the FIRS wants those accounts to be frozen, the banks should do it. Even with
let me tell you something.
The confidentiality the banks have with their customers?
Yeah, confidentiality issues are guided by the common law. While the instruction given to FIRS to appoint banks as a collecting agent is a statute. It's a statutory obligation. So the question we are going to ask ourselves, how do you match a common law with a statutory law or with statutes? Lawyers can tell you better. Can a common law give way to status, or can a status give way to a common law? Let me equally say something. If an account of a taxpayer has a problem where he becomes a terrorist, of course, the issue of confidentiality on that account cannot stay. That's why I say the issue of confidentiality is not absolute but qualified. There are some circumstances upon which bank can unveil confidentiality on a customer's account in order to obey statutory obligation. So bank will be looking at, is FIRS doing this on their own, or do they have law backing it? This section, just as I mentioned, the section 49 of Company Income Tax Act is the law of the Federation. It's a statutory obligation. So are you going to say you're not going to obey a statutory obligation because of a common law of confidentiality? What the banks will do at this point is that if they have any similar statutory obligation not to do that, they will write to FIRS that we can't do it because we have another statutory obligation not to do that. But I doubt if a legal team of any bank will advise bank not to oblige because of a common law of confidentiality compared to status.
Now, would you also liken this to what they call the Garnishi order in...
Garnishi order,
yes, the Garnishi order in some other countries, where you see that the court may direct a third party, in this sense, like an agent, that owes money to the judgment debtor, that's like the defaulting taxpayer, to instead pay the tax authority. So would you liken this to a Garnishi order?
Yeah, just as what we are saying, if a taxpayer happens to go to court with Federal Revenue Service, and at the end of the day, Federal Revenue happens to get a judgment in favor of, in terms of the tax liabilities. Of course, the court order is enough for them to give to the bank to frozen the account and make sure they collect their taxes for them. Now,
the question, like LCCI has come out to say that this process would, or this policy, or this, this action that the FIRS is taking will damage the economy. What do you think?
The action, I don't think it will damage the economy if FIRS will obey the rules. That section doesn't mean the FIRS should be arbitrary over it. They should make sure the normal processes goes on. You can't just give administrative assessment to a taxpayer, he's contesting it, to go to a bank and ask him to freeze. You can't do that. Because FIRS should be very careful the way they go about it, because if they're not careful the way they go about it, there will be a lot of litigation all over the place. And let me tell you, it won't be in the favor of FIRS if they allow so many taxpayers to go into litigation with you. Because one, it's going to increase the cost of collection of tax, and it will take so long for some cases may take 3 years.
And they will also spend money.
Exactly, in court. So I advise FIRS to make sure that the processes involved in making sure that a tax is no longer contestable, it is final and absolute, must be in place. And also, the taxpayer must be very recalcitrant. That means he must show unwillingness to pay. Because I believe that if a liability is given to a taxpayer and he is willing to pay, FRS cannot go to court to ask bank to freeze his account. But a taxpayer must show the willingness to pay. There are some cases where when a liability is arrived and reconciliation is done, taxpayer will agree and FRS work out an installmental payment on how that money will be paid installmentally. So the idea of going to court to going to bank to appoint them as collecting agent must be on taxpayers that have refused to pay and the tax is no longer contested.
Now, if we look at this process very quickly, can this system also be abused? Can people take advantage of it and abuse the process?
I mean, the taxpayers?
Yes, or even people, yes, go to FIRS or, yes, go to the authority and say, so Nancy has so amount in so bank, she's not paying taxes, this and this and this and that. So you see that perhaps the system will be used to winch hunt businesses or individuals.
No, I think the banks, I don't think the banks will oblige to begin to give us this kind of information. Banks will oblige to give out information if FIRS has come up with a reality that this company has defaulted and have tax to collect. Where they have not audited you, where they have not carried out any administrative assessment, they can't do that. There's something that happened last week where instruction was given to bank to frozen the account of BDC operators. Because the BDC operators are supposed to pay VAT on the margins between the...
That raised an
exactly,
uproar,
but they're not paying. They're not paying. They say that they can't pay it because they should be exempted. Unfortunately, BDC operators operation is not VAT exempted. It's only microfinance banks that are exempted from paying VAT. So if BDC operators want actually to be exempted from paying VAT, what they would do is to quickly call the presidency to give executive order on that, or they will call for the review of our laws. Let me tell you, Nigerians have right to always call for review of our tax laws. The tax laws are there. It can be reviewed.
Okay, let's quickly move through because we will come to the end of the show. States should also take advantage of this, isn't it? The states, I guess, will be happy with this thing because the State Inland Revenue Service can also do this, isn't it?
Yes, State Inland Revenue Service can do that, but the virtue of provision of Section 50 or Personal Income Tax Act, because the 36 states of the State Board of Inland Revenue and even FCT are the Ministry of Personal Income Tax. So Section 50 also empower them to use banks or any other person as a collecting agent.
So is this a good move? How do you think this move will pan out?
No, my advice to our taxpayers, our clients, is that do the right thing. Make sure you get the qualified auditors and tax consultants that will make sure you keep the necessary books and records, prepare your accounts, pay your taxes, do the right thing. Most important thing, do the right thing. Don't wait for FIRS to come before you start doing the right thing.
How do you
and even when they come, get competent tax consultants to defend you.
How do you see this driving financial inclusion? Because we are saying there are a lot of poor people in Nigeria. Our financial inclusion is not that much, and you are giving us this kind of thing. Do you think it would encourage financial inclusion?
No, but you know that the poor people who are not earning income are not supposed to pay
taxes.
So definitely, if you are not earning any income, you're not supposed to pay taxes. If a company is not earning income, you're not supposed to pay taxes. And sometimes some of these taxes are not being paid because of lack of consciousness. So my advice is that let our taxpayers, let our clients begin to do the right thing. Let us do the right thing first, and I'm sure if we do the right thing, I'm very, very sure that whenever FIRS come, we can also defend what we want.
All right, let's leave it at that. Thank you very, very much, Kennedy, for coming on the program.
Thank you very much.
I've been speaking with Kennedy Iwundu, the chairman, FCT Tax Practitioners Association. We'll be talking about the FIRS order to banks to freeze accounts of alleged tax defaulters. We'll continue to watch that space. Be the best you can be, but the change that you want to see. I am Nancy in Nnaji.